Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me in another episode of Running to Write. I am Ben Pick, and this is where I give questionable writing advice through running metaphors. I want to thank everyone for joining me already. Let's see, we got Richard Holiday, who is trying to make me salivate live on screen. We got Adriana, who is coming in clutch because she actually made a lot of the images, which I'll show tonight, or the two images I'll show tonight, and really helped. Well, tonight's entire topic, the whole series, came together because of her suggestion. Now, before we get started, I have two announcements. The first one is unfortunate. Bookend Lane, where I got this awesome sweatshirt. There we go. Imposter syndrome is sus. Bad news about it. Eva will be making posts later, I'm sure, but for right now, that has been shut down, which is horrible news. I mean, it was a really cool place for a bunch of indie authors to get noticed and to come together. And Eva has been a wonderful person in the AuthorTube community and has been a great supporter of Running to Write. So I'm really saddened. I mean, obviously it's it's, Eva's choice, whatever. And there are reasons behind it, but it's just unfortunate that it has to come to an end just when I feel like it was on the cusp of something great, on the cusp of something greater. And so I would say get your holiday orders in, but unfortunately, it's been completely shut down. So those affiliate codes, if you use them, great. If not, hopefully you got yourself a really nice sweatshirt for the holidays, or you got that coffee mug, or you got that tote bag for your writing friends. Because right now it is a bit too late to get it from Bookend Lane, which is a shame. Also, number 2, author Lori Thorne, who I brought on here and interviewed on Running to Write a few weeks ago. She interviewed me as a part of Page Rebels, which is the series where she brings on other authors and interviews them. Now, if you're interested in hearing if you're tired of hearing my voice, because the interview that we did, her interview of me just came out today. There are 3 other interviews on there on Spotify. I don't know the exact number. I've listened to them all, but they're on a weekly basis. So I don't remember what I've listened to or what will be coming out soon. Anyways, my point is, if you're tired of hearing my voice, there are plenty of other authors to entertain you and learn from, including another friend of Running to Write, J.M. Chaley. I don't know exactly when his interview is coming out with her. I know that he recorded before I did, but you might be waiting for some kind of special or something that's going on to actually post that episode. But either way, go check out Lori Thorne, Page Rebels. It is on Spotify. I don't know where else it's located. I know I get it from Spotify, and it's free to listen to. It's another wonderful author podcast. So check it out. Check it out. Check it out. Now, welcome. Tonight, I'm starting my series on a well-tread topic, writing to the senses. As I mentioned before, and I've kind of alluded to, this is a slight tangent backstory for my anniversary. I went to a nice dinner with my wife, and the restaurant was louder than expected, and the food was excellent. There were countless things to see. Obviously, the taste was there. Now, what flavors about the dinner made it unique? Or to convey this in writing terms, how do we write our characters eating? The better question is, why am I starting the series with taste? Sight's the easiest to write, and our first descriptions of characters is usually how they look. Sounds are also easy for writers to imagine. All we really need to do is close my eyes, and I can envision an entire scene. Right now, I'm in my basement. So if I close my eyes, there won't really be any sounds for me to hear. But if I keep talking, I can hear a very slight echo as my voice bounces off the walls. Or when I go to the park, I can hear the people walking their dogs. And tonight, since it was after dark, no one was there. So all I heard was the sounds of rustling leaves, which can be kind of unnerving when it's dark and I'm in a poorly lit area. Anyways, I would argue that taste more so than the other senses, is impacted the most by all the other senses. For example, try to eat with your eyes closed or your nose covered. It's a different experience. We taste by smelling what we're eating. We taste by looking at what we're eating. And based on what we eat or based on what we see we're about to eat, we can have certain perceptions of how something will taste. And that absolutely impacts the entire eating experience. And closing my eyes and shutting my eyes and closing my nose might even help me get through a few slices of Richard's favorite abomination, which is pineapple on pizza. By the way, Richard, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you in the comment section. And yes, I do. I wouldn't say I intentionally visit parks at night, but honestly, by the time I get out of work at 5, it is already dark. So I am walking through a park at night, and well, mine's maybe my camera is roughly 70% Rufus, half of which is him just lying there asleep, and the rest of it is food. So yeah, we do talk about food a lot. We talk about what we're eating. I sent him a couple of pictures from Thanksgiving. I didn't take any pictures of the actual meal, but I did take some pictures of prep, and those are used in the thumbnail, but I'll also bring them up here. And I'll talk about the thumbnail too, because that was a fun, some of those were fun meals. Speaking about Thanksgiving, for those of us in the US, we likely celebrated Thanksgiving last week. There were all kinds of things to taste, and so this is fresh in my mind, which makes it the perfect time to talk to you all about writing taste. A few scenes in my second novel actually took place during and around this holiday, and I did everything I could to convey how the creamy sweet potato and marshmallows tasted. It's not a meal I typically have at my Thanksgiving, but I can certainly imagine what it tastes like. And I've had some incredible cooks and bakers in my life who have made that dish, and it is stunningly delicious, especially as somebody who has a very bad sweet tooth. Now, within my story, Expanding Cracks is when I include the Thanksgiving scenes. So, falling through as a couple of eating scenes, that's where people judge me for my description of tuna mac and cheese with sriracha on it. And then that takes place end of summer, early fall. Expanding Cracks takes place through most of fall and overlaps with Thanksgiving. So there was a multiple scenes where there were just families sitting around eating. And I wanted to make readers feel that they were at that Thanksgiving meal to bring them deeper into my story and relate more to my characters. So these are my 5 tips to writing tastes into our stories. And to backtrack for a second, I'll end with those pictures. Yes, tuna mac and cheese with sriracha is delicious. It's cheap, it's easy, it's fast, and while it has few to no nutritional content, it is still filling. So it makes a good dinner if you're in a pinch. Now, anyways, tip number 1, know the words. For regular writing, without taking into taste or meals or whatever, we need to know what's in the dictionary or thesaurus to start as writers. Otherwise, it'll be difficult to convey our ideas when the right words fail us. And that happens very frequently, especially on here when I'm live and I just kind of draw a blank on what I'm trying to say next because I can't think of the words fast enough. I've been hanging on a sentence trying to think of what the next word I'm looking for is and dropping it entirely. Now, for food and writing, cookbooks and recipe websites are terrific places to find and study and learn what words work for taste. Watching shows and movies about food can also be helpful, especially British Bake Off and other shows just like it. And those can add to your general knowledge for how people describe what they're eating, or describe what they're eating so that it sounds appetizing, or describe what they're eating when something falls apart, especially on British Bake Off, where they have an obscenely short amount of time to get done with their challenges. And I've been sitting there, I've been in other rooms and heard my wife yell at the TV about how that isn't enough time for them to adequately bake a cake. Now, I've also included in the description a website with tasty descriptors it's in the description below, and that's from Kathy Steinman's website. It has over 300 words to incorporate into our tastes that are both mouth-watering and vomit-inducing. So that is a very helpful handbook. I also, just for regular writing, I also have the let me speak accurately, the emotional thesaurus, which is onestopforwriters.com. Just completely out there, had a random thought, went with it. But that helps me write the emotions of the characters. And more than that, tip number 2, give it meaning. Now that you know the words, thank you, Richard, for also including it. That's exactly what I'm going for. And we also have Stanley Tucci's show about traveling across Italy and eating. Now, it's not enough to just list out random words about food and what the characters are eating. Just like there needs to be more from the dictionary in terms of relating to our characters. We can say, this character felt angry, or this character was upset, or this character looked on in horror, or this character was happier than they've ever been. But those are just words on the page, and they're telling us rather than showing us what the characters are experiencing. And I have certainly read some authors who abuse the thesaurus. Their writing doesn't sound better because they swap one word for another to make their narrator or their characters sound more intelligent. Simply throwing adjectives into our story doesn't excite a reader's taste. Instead, I recommend aiming for an emotional connection or a specific memory or metaphor. Now, going fully purple prose may not be the best solution, but certainly filling out how a taste makes a character feel is a great way to bring the reader to the dinner table in the story. To that end, there are 2 cooked things which I treasure in my memories. Those are my grandfather's smoked salmon and my grandmother's brisket. Of all of the food dishes I've ever had, I can remember multiple Thanksgivings, multiple birthdays, multiple July 4th celebrations where those were served, and they are delicious. And I was a kid, I was a picky eater, so that says a lot. Now, going on about my grandmother's brisket, that was worth its weight in gold. And my siblings and I fought over who got to get the leftovers. In fact, it was really fun when I would, spend the night at my grandmother's house and I would get to eat the brisket the night before, obviously, and have as much of it as I wanted. But then the next day I would get to just reheat all the leftovers. So I would get, my choice pick. Anyways, the recipes, the words on the page have been passed down to other people, yet the recreations never taste quite the same to me. Most of the generation above me has tried to cook my grandma's brisket with mixed degrees of success. Sure, the outcome is good brisket, but it's not the tender and juicy brisket my grandmother painstakingly made for the holidays. Over the years, a few attempts have come out as dry and forgettable. I'm being recorded, and I know my family watched this, so I will not comment on who made what, but I've talked to them about this, and no matter what, we have not successfully recreated those just marvelous culinary experiences. So it's not just my memory that's acting up here or misremembering something. We have admitted to each other that the recreations are nowhere near the original. Moving along, number 3, focus on the details. When writing about food, there are obvious descriptors of taste like savory, fruity, spicy, going back to that list of words to describe food. But taste is more than that. There's also texture. My wife dislikes tripe, which is, I think it's the inner lining, the stomach lining of beef, of a cow, but it comes with faux. And we usually get the faux meal, which includes basically everything. And then she'll give me her tripe. And she doesn't like it because of how chewy it feels, along with what amounts to a Velcro texture. Well, soft Velcro texture, which is the best way of describing it. I like it because it it has good well, it's kind of doesn't have much of a taste, but I'm not put off by that chewy sensation. And the Velcro, I think, is the best way of describing the texture because it's like almost bristles. Now, the fact that I really like it, the fact that my wife doesn't, just shows their taste preferences are unique to us. Or to again bring it into our stories, one character can love something, another can despise it. We have the discussion between myself and Richard about whether or not pineapple belongs on pizza, and he will swear by it. I will swear against it. It's that exact same mindset. And there's dozens of other foods like that for her. In fact, when my wife was playing rugby, she needed nutrients, and eggs are a great, quick, fast, cheap source for getting protein and getting nutrients and building up muscle. Except that she hated eggs. So to get over that, she bought a Costco package of 96 eggs and cooked them in different ways until she found something which she could tolerate and eventually grew to love eggs. Now, that's not all eggs. Scrambled eggs have a bizarre texture for her, and it's better wet than dry. So she went on experimenting with those 96 different eggs. It wasn't the egg or tripe's taste, but rather the texture that she despised. Now she loves eggs, although she still dislikes hard boiled eggs. And our taste can change over time, so that could be a great way to show our characters evolving and growing and maturing from children to adults. Even so, some things will remain the same. There are definitely foods which I will not eat, will not enjoy. And there are others which I will always can, with high confidence, say I will always love. Hey, cool gamer, thanks for joining us. I hope you're hungry. Now, I've already mentioned chewy. There's also tender, like my grandmother's famous brisket, or crispy or melty, like the s'mores I make. My trick is to not only roast the marshmallow in the fire, but to also place the graham cracker and chocolates next to the fire. So that way the graham cracker comes off crunchy, and it toasts the graham cracker a little bit more, getting it, like I said, nice and crunchy. And it also melts the chocolate, so it gets an even gooier flavor when you smash everything together. And so that is a very sweet flavor that melts in my mouth and is, in my opinion, the perfect s'more. Different people will make their own s'mores, but that is my opinion, my favorite kind. Number 4, we want to intentionally intend to invoke reactions in readers. Do you want readers to have their mouths water at a feast laid out before our characters? Or do we want readers to feel reviled at the conditions of the moldy bread our heroes are forced to eat in order to survive in a dungeon? I skimmed a lot in A Song in Ice and Fire, particularly the meal descriptions. They were often just listings of food at a table. I didn't care if there was only a roasted turkey or an opulent feast that the characters were eating from. The idea of the scene was conveyed after the first word, and adding more to it didn't add more to the scene for me. So it would be, there was roast turkey, there was this side dish, there was this, and I would just kind of skim over most of that. Those are my opinions, and George R. R. Martin is critically acclaimed and globally renowned, so take my opinions with a grain of salt. Now, when I wrote my Thanksgiving scene, I didn't describe every item on the table. If I did, then I glanced over most of them. However, I did a short moment before the dinner where my character snuck a taste of the dessert, which I mentioned as the sweet potato with marshmallows on it. And instead of the macro details of the meal, I zoomed in on a single item and did my best to convey its flavors in a way to tantalize readers. And lastly, number 5, bring in the other senses. I know tonight the focus is on taste, but how something appears when it's plated impacts how we expect it to taste. We should account for that in our writing if possible. So, how is the food served? Is it a sizzling steak pulled right off the grill? Is it a fun, fancy restaurant that lights it up on fire before handing it to you? Am I eating a cool gazpacho on a hot summer afternoon? Is it a thirst quenching watermelon salad after I've come in from a 10-mile run? Those are all really important questions and different ways of thinking about the meals and the way in which our characters eat. Or to turn things rancid, is the I'll fine, I'll tell a story. Is the rolling apple in the trunk of my car, which must have been hidden between the panel for multiple years, is that what I'm forced to eat? That apple, I might have been a peach. I don't remember. It was some kind of fruit. It had gotten wedged in between a gap. And so I didn't really notice it until there was a putrid odor that made me gag when I finally found the source and cleaned it up because I could practically taste it while I was driving, which let me tell you, that was a disgusting occurrence for about, for as long as it took me to find the smell that was trapped in my car. Now, side note, the smell would come and go, which is what made it so difficult to narrow down the source, but it was consistently there. And then once I, started moving things around the trunk, that's when I found it, and that's when it hit me quite profoundly. Now, my greatest advice for taste and the rest of the series is to excite the senses within our readers. Those are my 5 tips for taste. And to close out, let me give you a short demonstration of what I had for Thanksgiving. First and foremost, we have, well, I have to ruin everything with the salad. Watermelon salad is actually really good. It's very thirst quenching and just like the gazpacho, perfect for a hot afternoon or just getting back from a run. Of course, I did not eat the peach. That thing was rotten to the core, and well, that was a I would say it's better than the wine bottle incident because the broken wine bottle you could smell from inside the car. So if I ever had to roll down my window until we fully got the smell out, anybody, if I were ever pulled over, anybody would think that not quite the best. Now, on to good things. These are birthday cake macarons with vanilla cream filling that Adriana made. There's a lovely batch. They were absolutely delicious. My cousin certainly enjoyed them. And my aunt had to, before her kids ate all of these, we sealed away a couple of them in a bag and put them in her candy stash so that way she could enjoy them later. Yes, macarons are delicious. Adriana made them. We also have this lovely apple pie from Thanksgiving. And yeah, good. I did include this. Okay. So these are jalapeno poppers in the front, which I made using jalapenos from my garden. There are also some serrano peppers in the back, which we're trying to give away because there were extras and I didn't feel like cooking a lot. That was more than enough jalapeno poppers for my family for Thanksgiving. So I didn't want to keep making more and more and more. In the back, it's hard to tell from here, but those are more macarons, and they are, I don't remember what flavors they are. Salted caramel, pecan, apple pie. Thank you. No, sorry. What I showed before was the salted caramel, pecan, apple pie. Yes. And then here there was one with chai macarons, I think are on the right. And then on the left, there are, don't remember those flavors. Yes, they are quite good. These were perfect when they just came out of the fryer. There was roughly a 2-hour gap between that and when I served them at dinner, so I had to kind of just bake them again, and they weren't quite as good. But I will say this: I do make quite some good jalapeno poppers. And yeah, so we got pumpkin chai macarons, which are delicious, or they were delicious. They're all but gone now. And then cinnamon apple macarons with salted caramel buttercream. Mwah. Those were absolute hits with my family. Again, the macarons are a dish that Adriana brings that get divvied out very, very carefully and judiciously. The only good thing I'll say is that, well, not good thing, but we tend to have more than enough, and I will certainly eat a whole bunch of batches that don't pass Adriana's quality standards. Not my standards, by the way. I am perfectly fine with them. Either way, quality standards that my wife enforces. And so, yeah, sure, Richard, you're definitely invited next year. Where was I going with it? Oh, right. So I get a whole bunch of the extras. And so when we get to wherever we're going, usually we end up giving away all the macarons to whoever wants them. And they're a huge hit with my family. So everybody sort of fights for their own share. Now, anyways, I am Ben Pick. Thank you for joining me in Writing to Write. I've been going off on multiple tangents, all about taste. Thanksgiving has just happened, so I hope you'll pardon all these descriptions of food and deliciousness. By the way, since I have a massive, massive sweet tooth, by far my favorite macarons were these. Sugar on sugar on sugar. I approve. Now, let me know in the comments how you write your meals. Also, this is a shameless plug, but at some point over the next year, I would love to make a cookbook of food from our stories. Now, I mentioned the tuna mac and cheese. Probably not going to include that. I might come up with a great recipe for the sweet potato and marshmallows. So if you have some characters that eat in your stories or you want to be included, then definitely write those stories. So let me know, DM me, do whatever. And let me know what foods your characters are eating. And that way we can get an AuthorTube cookbook. Just some random idea I've been kind of tossing around for a while. So let me know if you're interested and what foods you might consider adding to your stories so that they count. Now, I post my running and writing progress on X as Writing to Write and Instagram as well. More focused on Instagram. You can also get tons of food images. You can also get pictures of my dog and my running workouts. So be sure to follow me and join in with your own thoughts. There's also the Writing to Write monthly newsletter, which will be sending out the next episode on the 3rd, which I feel like is this coming Sunday. So if you want updates on my sort of musings, pitfalls, and lessons learned, then go ahead and sign up for the Writing to Write monthly newsletter. The link is in the description below. Now, see you next time. Until then, I'll leave you with a direct quote from Adriana and myself on the cannolis we ate, where she described the texture as velvety. And since I mentioned I had the taste buds of a child, I like the sugary bursts of chocolate chips with creamy filling. Those were fantastic cannolis. And yeah, I do kind of miss the fact that you can't really get good cannolis or pizza here. My wife is bringing me around to the idea that we have to basically go up to New Jersey, get certain food products. Pizza and bagels and cannolis are certainly up there. There are great places around here, but it's not quite the same. So I will leave you at that, where we can write the characters, the settings that we write can be heavily influenced by the locales in which they're taking place. So be sure to incorporate those tastes, what's available, and everything into your stories. Like I said, see you next time. What will I be doing? I'll be doing smells next week. So get ready for a smell-ridden episode and possibly puns as I think of them. See you then.